The end of World War I in 1918. The end of World War I in 1918 marked the conclusion of one of the bloodiest and most devastating conflicts in human history. The war, which lasted for 4 years and claimed the lives of over 16 million people, was brought to an end through a series of events and agreements that ultimately led to the signing of the Treaty of Versailles on June 28, 1919. The road to the end of the war was a long and complex one, shaped by a variety of factors including military strategy, political maneuvering, and economic pressure. One of the key factors that led to the end of the war was the entry of the United States into the conflict in 1917. The United States, with its vast resources and manpower, was able to tip the balance of the war in favor of the Allies, providing them with the necessary support to push back the German army. Another important factor that contributed to the end of the war was the collapse of the Central Powers. The German army, which had been on the offensive for much of the war, was facing increasing pressure on multiple fronts. The Russian Revolution of 1917 had removed Russia from the war, freeing up German troops to be sent to the Western Front. However, the German army was also facing a growing threat from the United States and the other Allied powers. In the face of these challenges, the German government was forced to seek an armistice. On November 11, 1918, an armistice was signed between the German government and the Allied powers, bringing the fighting to a halt. The terms of the armistice were harsh, with the Germans being forced to give up a large portion of their territory and turn over their military equipment. The signing of the armistice marked the official end of World War I, but the peace process was far from over. The Allies, led by France and Great Britain, were determined to make Germany pay for the devastation caused by the war. The Treaty of Versailles, which was signed in June of 1919, imposed harsh penalties on Germany, including large reparations payments and the loss of territory. The Treaty of Versailles was a controversial agreement, with many Germans feeling that the penalties imposed on their country were unjust. The treaty also failed to address many of the underlying issues that had led to the outbreak of war, such as the rising nationalism sentiments in Europe. In conclusion, the end of World War I in 1918 marked the end of one of the most destructive conflicts in human history. The war, which lasted for 4 years, was brought to an end through a series of events and agreements that ultimately led to the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. The treaty imposed harsh penalties on Germany and failed to address many of the underlying issues that had led to the outbreak of war. The end of World War I was a significant event in world history, but it also set the stage for the even more devastating conflict that would come just 2 decades later, World War II. The end of World War I also brought about significant changes to the political landscape of Europe. The collapse of the Russian Empire and the Austro-Hungarian Empire led to the emergence of new nations, such as Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia. The Ottoman Empire, which had been an ally of the Central Powers, also disintegrated, leading to the formation of several new Middle Eastern nations such as Iraq and Palestine. The end of the war also had a profound impact on the economy of Europe. The destruction caused by the war, combined with the large reparations payments demanded by the Allies, left many countries in economic ruin. This economic instability would ultimately lead to the rise of extremist political movements, such as fascism in Italy and National Socialism in Germany. The war also had a profound impact on the people of Europe. Millions of men had been killed or wounded, leaving behind a generation of women, children and elderly people struggling to cope with the loss of their loved ones and their livelihoods. The war also resulted in the displacement of millions of people, as refugees fled war-torn areas in search of safety and stability. The end of World War I also had a significant impact on the world at large. The war had demonstrated the destructive power of modern weapons and the devastating consequences of industrialized warfare. It also revealed the deep-seated nationalism sentiments that existed in Europe and the failure of the old diplomatic system to prevent war. The League of Nations was established in the aftermath of the war with the aim of preventing future conflicts and promoting peace and cooperation among nations. In conclusion, the end of World War I in 1918 marked the end of one of the most destructive conflicts in human history. The war had a profound impact on the people and nations of Europe, as well as the world at large. The Treaty of Versailles, while officially ending the war, failed to address many of the underlying issues that had led to the outbreak of war and imposed harsh penalties on Germany, which would ultimately lead to future conflicts. The war also served as a reminder of the devastating consequences of industrialized warfare and the need for international cooperation to prevent future conflicts.